Hi, good afternoon. Thanks for joining us for our webinar this afternoon, High Performing Teams and Technology Solutions. This is John Gootee from Breakpoint. Thanks so much for taking some time out of your day to join us. With you today is John from Breakpoint Technology. I'm a managing consultant there. Also have my friend Shawn Richards with us. Shawn, good afternoon.
Hi, John. How you doing?
Doing great. Thanks for hopping on with us. We're excited to go over some things around teams on the soft side and on the technology side. So looking forward to it. Real quick, before we get into the content, just quick introduction to Breakpoint. Breakpoint, our focus is really on trying to find the correct solutions for customers. Our approach going after a business and working with customers is always to really look at the technology and see what options are already in play at your organization. How can we leverage what you have? How can we fill the gaps between what you need and where you need to get to? Our philosophy, and it's even part of our name, is to take a break from, take a break point, take a pause, understand what your pains are as we move forward to find the right solution with you in partnership. And to the right here, you can see several of the different solutions Breakpoint specializes in. The one we're really focusing in today around collaboration strategies, top middle there, but we have expertise in a variety of other areas on the Microsoft platform, from integrated portal solutions, custom development, all the way down through to data and AI solutions. So thanks again for hopping on with us. And then Shawn, I know your company's been around for a while.
Yeah, we've been around for a few years, and we focus on helping teams become high-performing teams. And we do that through a series of leadership development programs and workshops. And we like to focus on team culture, productivity, employee engagement, team engagement, and a variety of other things. I personally am a Gallup certified strengths coach, and I also have a certified practitioner's license through Air Consulting. They're a consulting firm out of Philadelphia. And we really enjoy working with teams, and especially leaders, to help them learn how to lead their teams more effectively and turn those teams into high-performing teams.
Very good. Very good. Thanks for that introduction. And then for our webinar today, this is the areas we're going to really focus into. We have really two major buckets. Shawn's going to take us through the triad of high-performing teams. And with some of the concepts that he brings forward there, I'm going to show you some areas within the technology stack that are available in the Microsoft 365 platform that really support the concepts that Shawn's talking about around higher performing teams. And then we'll have some Q&A at the end as possible. There's actually a Q&A panel on your live event. If you have questions, please feed those into the Q&A panel, and we'll address those as we go through. I believe we have someone on moderating those with us, so we'll answer those as we go and visit those at the end to make sure we get everything. And then we'll give you some contact info at the end if you'd like to have some more discussions around the concepts that we're talking about today. There we go. And then Shawn, we'll let you kind of take over here on the slides as you start to dive into the concepts of the triad there.
All right, very good. Well, thank you very much, John. I appreciate the opportunity to join with you. It's always a pleasure to chat, and looking forward to our discussion today. I refer to a high-performing team as having three components, so I call it the triad of high-performing teams. And I refer to the triad, you can see the definition here, but it is simply a group of three closely related compounds or elements. And so for our purposes today, we will be able to talk a little bit more about what those three things are and what we can do to improve our teams. So we'll just take a little bit of discussion here and we'll kind of get started. One of the first things that is important for a team to have is high productivity. That means basically just getting things done. And we'll go through these in a little bit more detail, of course, in the next little bit. The second thing is a really positive culture. And then the third is confident leadership. Those are the three elements that need to be in every team for it to be a high-performing team. High productivity, positive culture, and confident leadership. So let's talk a little bit more about what those mean. High productivity, there's a lot of elements that go into that. One of the first is good alignment. Alignment can mean a lot of different things, but essentially it helps to understand the company's mission and its purpose. And when the team members or the employees understand that and feel a connectedness with that, that's when they start to feel a sense of commitment, of belonging, that what they do matters. And that's really the key, because sometimes, and I think every business has this in some part of their company, there are going to be those employees that sometimes feel like what they do isn't important, or they don't see why they should be doing what they're doing. It may seem mundane, it may seem boring to them. It's absolutely essential that they understand why they're doing what they're doing and why it's important and how it helps move the company forward. In many cases, it's also helpful to help them see how it's helping the client or the customer, whatever it is that they're doing. If it's a safety function that they're overseeing on a manufacturing line, if there's a product that they're putting out, if it's a salesperson that's selling that product, why it's beneficial to the client and what they do has meaning and purpose in their work. So having that alignment, that connectedness is really important to boost engagement and to help keep the employees productive. Another component of productivity is execution. Now, this seems kind of obvious. I think we all want to get things done, but how exactly do we do that? Some examples include staying focused, making sure that we manage our time correctly, and making sure that you have a coordinated effort, because sometimes what happens, and I've seen this happen, I had a situation a number of years ago where two people were working on the same exact project, not in a complementary way, but they were doing literally the exact same thing. And all of a sudden you find out that two people are spending their time doing the same thing. Now you've just wasted time. And it does create some frustration, because now you're in a situation where you're trying to decide, well, which solution are we going with? And you can hurt feelings and people can get frustrated. They can feel like they just wasted 2 hours working on something that somebody else was working on and didn't know it. And those are the kinds of things, those coordinating efforts are so critical to make sure everybody understands what their role is, what their tasks are. And if you don't have that, if you don't have that good communication, that can really cause some problems. Another important element of getting things done in an effective, highly productive way is to rely on strengths. Understanding everybody's strengths. It's important for each team member to understand their own strengths. It's important for the team leader or the supervisor, manager, whatever title they may have, for them to understand the strengths of each of the team members. And it's helpful for each of the team members to know what the strengths are of their teammates. You can't have an effective assignment and delegation if you don't know what everybody's strengths are. And then, of course, it's important to have the key performance indicators. We call them KPIs, helping people to understand a little bit better about what is it that how we're going to measure our success, and so on and so forth. And that leads into the next part of high productivity, which is adaptation. And this one's going to resonate with a lot of folks here. And from the last 12 months or so, as we've dealt with this pandemic, this has become a very hot topic about how to adapt and to adjust. If you're not measuring properly, then there's a high likelihood that you'll miss something. You'll not realize that things aren't as productive as they used to be. You're not putting out the output. Maybe the hours aren't as effective. That constant measuring and evaluating is really important. That's going to help you deal with those unexpected things. John, if I could just very quickly, I don't want to put you on the spot, but has Breakpoint Technology run into a couple of little snags here the last year or so during this pandemic that has caused you guys to adjust?
Well, absolutely, Shawn. We have. We were positioned pretty well for remote work as an organization, but what we found is that we've been able to help a lot of our customers who weren't really ready for that shift to being more of a remote workforce. But absolutely, seen a lot of change in the industry and within our customer base.
Yeah, it's certainly been something that's been talked about in the industry that I'm in, with culture and teams and leadership and whatnot, is how to deal with that. And being able to adjust quickly and solve that problem, whatever it is is certainly going to help with your productivity. And it's worth noting that certainly it's an easy example right now for all of us to talk about the pandemic. But in my experience, there have been a lot of situations that come at a company unexpectedly. It could be government changes in law. It could be an industry-wide challenge. It could be company specific. It could be local. There's all different kinds of things that can throw some wrenches into our well-oiled machine. And being able to adapt, being able to adjust and pivot, that's a popular word, to pivot, solve those problems, especially working together as a team. Those are so important if you want to have really high productivity on the team. That's going to lead in very nicely to our positive culture. And I emphasize the word positive. You can have, it sounds really obvious, but it's amazing to me as I'm working with teams, how many of them don't realize that they actually have some negative elements of their culture. So I always like to take a quick minute and emphasize the importance of having positive culture. Innovation is an important part of good culture, because when you have some good innovation, that's when you have opportunities to share ideas and to really brainstorm and kind of unleash, if you will, that creativity. But if people aren't feeling comfortable, or if they're not feeling confident, or if there is a sense of negativity within the team, they're far less likely to share those ideas. And it's even difficult sometimes to get into a good brainstorming session if you're not careful with how it's handled. I had a situation just this week, and it's Wednesday, so it just happened in the last couple of days, where I was participating in a meeting and an idea was suggested, and it was someone else on the team made a little bit of a hasty comment, and they were quick to apologize, but they kind of ridiculed the idea just a little bit. And it wasn't too harsh, but just enough that you could feel a little bit of a freeze on this idea of sharing ideas and really getting to brainstorming. And just very quickly, for those who might be kind of curious, if there's a difference between idea sharing and brainstorming, there is. And it's not too distinct, but just a little bit. Sharing ideas is usually the very beginning, and brainstorming tends to become much more strategic. For example, an idea share might be as simple as the comment box. For those of you that remember kind of the old days, and I don't see them around too much anymore, but it used to be that you could have a, leave a comment here, kind of a box, and you could drop in a comment. That's simply sharing an idea. But when a team can get together, and it's usually for an extended period of time, usually 2 to 3 hours is a good brainstorming session, because what you have to be able to do is develop these ideas a little bit and brainstorm them. What has been impressive to me over the years as I've worked with different teams is to watch what happens during the brainstorming process, because it's not usually the first idea that gets developed. Sometimes it's the second idea, the third idea. You keep developing and refining. But again, bringing it back to culture, if people don't feel that confidence and that sense of support from their teammates, they're not going to share ideas, and they're going to be less likely to be creative and to brainstorm effectively. So that's a really important part of culture. Another part of that is collaboration. When we talk about collaboration, we talk about this idea of togetherness, working towards a common purpose, and very much a we are a team mentality. And I have to say, I'm going to put in just a quick little plug with my friends here at Breakpoint, because I get the very distinct sense that they have a really strong team mentality. So again, John, I'm just going to ask really quickly, what are some things that you feel like have contributed to your team unity within Breakpoint Technology?
I would say a couple of the big things, Shawn, is a real solid feeling of trust within the organization. I feel comfortable, taking, positive things and negative things to the leadership at Breakpoint or with other consultants that are at Breakpoint. And we have a real spirit of problem solving. It's a culture of not pointing fingers when there's problems. It's a culture of let's get the solution to the problem and push that forward. It's that kind of mindset mentality that really helps a lot.
Yeah, I love that. You guys have got it nailed, because that's exactly what you need. You use the key word, John, that's trust. You have to always be developing trust. And yes, sometimes there's going to be a little bit of a debate, something's going to happen, and we sometimes forget and trust erodes a little bit, but it can be built back up. But the key is to always have that trust. In fact, here we go. The psychological safety. Trust Very important. Build it up, keep it up. If it starts to erode, quickly correct it. But part of also this psychological safety, this feeling of trust within a team, includes having some diversity and allowing those ideas and those perspectives to be different. And it can't always be done perfectly every time as far as having this completely 100% diverse team. But certainly if there are some opportunities to include women's voices, the voices of minorities, age differences. Sometimes people who are a little bit older will have a different perspective than those who are just emerging from teenagerhood into adulthood, whether it's college age, whether it's a little bit older than that. But being able to allow all individuals to share ideas and to really value their perspective and what they can bring, that's such an important part of building and developing psychological safety within the team. And I mentioned it earlier, but I'm going to repeat it again because it can never be emphasized enough, the importance of positivity, of always leading with positive intent, never to say anything that's even slightly perceived as a negative comment. And that takes work. It just does. It takes training. It takes a sense of nurturing within the team. And there will always be those moments where something is said accidentally or perhaps in jest, maybe a little sarcastic, that creates a little bit of a mistrust in there. But it is so important to have these elements to develop that psychological safety. One of the things that will tend to come up, of course, we talked about it a little bit, but just to dive a little bit deeper, this conflict management idea. I'm not a big fan of the word conflict. I know that there are other leadership development experts out there that will say that conflict is good. I personally prefer to use the word debate. That's the word that I use. It's a little bit softer. Conflict has a very negative tone, and both of them are essentially doing the same thing. So I always encourage respectful debate. If there's a significant difference of opinion between two people, doing your best to resolve it, but also being willing to accept that maybe we're going to agree to disagree, but keeping the larger purpose in mind. Again, going back to that idea that we are a team, that we're going to work together and move in the same direction. And maybe one path may be slightly different than another person's idea of what path they should take, but that doesn't mean that you still can't accomplish great things. So when we refer to conflict management, I like the notion of resolving differences, but really encouraging and fostering a respectful debate about whatever it is, and not letting the emotions get too out of hand. It's okay to be passionate, but sometimes that enthusiasm or that passion can be misinterpreted as anger or as a kind of almost a bully mentality where I want it my way and that's it. And so it is important to monitor and kind of bridle those passions a little bit and make sure that they don't get too far out of hand, so that respectful debate can occur. Even if there's some disagreement, that's okay. Of course, part of positive culture is having really, really good communication, making sure that you're clear. And I'm looking forward to, John, when you talk about your portion about the communication here in a little bit, because that third bullet item on this list here, nonverbal, about how many times, and I think just about everybody's run into this. I have a very quick example of a mistake that I made early in my career when I emailed. I apologize. It was a message, a text messaging system that we had within the company. And I had a good friend of mine who was in a different department. He reached out and he kind of made a couple of comments that I took the wrong way, and I was in kind of a bad mood in the morning, and I just fired back this really awful response. And almost within minutes after sending it, I realized, Shawn, this is not how you treat your friend. This is not this. And almost immediately at that exact moment, I'm starting to feel guilty. He walked into my office and he kind of had this little timid look on his face, and I just immediately apologized. But we have to be really careful what words we use, and especially in a nonverbal situation. For whatever reason, we tend to be a little bit bolder when we're texting or when we're emailing or messaging. And we need to be careful. We need to step back a little bit, not let emotions get in the way, and be careful about how we do that. And certainly the words that we use. And when we are in a face-to-face or maybe over a phone call or a telecommunications situation, using really good listening skills and eye contact, repeating what they've said to help them know that you've heard what they've said. All of those are different techniques that can help really foster good listening skills and overall really good communication. All right, so let's go to the third item of kind of this triad of high-performing teams, and that is confident leadership. And really quickly, you know, when we talk about confident leadership, confidence is, of course, not arrogance. It's not egotistical. It's knowing what to do in most cases, but it doesn't have to be in all cases. So that's just a quick definition of what we talk about when we say confident leadership. It doesn't mean you have to have all the answers, but you should have a pretty good idea of what to do and how to handle different situations when it comes to working with your team. But really, I love the idea of confident leadership is all about empowering your employees and your team members. It's helping them set goals. It's understanding what their ambitions are and helping them achieve those ambitions. It's understanding the difference between intrinsic, which is internal motivation, and of course the extrinsic, which is external motivation. What motivates people? What gets them up in the morning? What are they excited about? It's understanding how to engage your employees. And there, of course, we could spend hours talking about each one of these. And there's been a lot of studies done about engagement and how to engage employees. But I like to think of the leader's role as empowering the employees so that they can do the best work possible. Simple example, imagine if you are a leader of 10 people, you have 10 people on your team. If you could empower each one of those individuals to increase their productivity by even just 5 or 10% each, small measurement, but imagine if the entire team has increased their productivity by just a small amount. The entire team then is far more productive than they were before. A good leader, a confident leader, will know how to set and manage expectations. That includes understanding and communicating guidelines, whether it be to a particular project that you may be working on. It could also mean the guidelines within a company policies and procedures. Certainly, if you are in a manufacturing type situation or an assembly line where there's a lot of equipment, safety will always be a high priority. And so helping the team members to understand what those guidelines are, what the safety protocols are, and making sure that they're followed is really important. Part of this is also to learn how to delegate properly. You don't have to do it all. You don't even have to necessarily know it all. You can assign someone to become the expert in a particular area, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit. But learning how to delegate as a leader is part of setting and managing expectations, handing off a project or a task to someone and saying, will you please handle this, and setting the expectations, when it's due, you kind of expect that to look like as far as the finished product or service, and so on and so forth. So some really important parts about setting and managing expectations as a part of leadership. Another part of leadership is just developing good relationships. First, with each member of the team directly, your relationship with them. And then, of course, fostering that relationship with or between the team members themselves, making sure that if there is a little bit of a conflict, like we talked about earlier, that you can step in and help kind of massage that and resolve it so that the team members can work effectively together. Part of what a confident leader needs to be able to do is to act as an advocate for their team, to be able to go upline and say to whoever it may be, it could be an executive, it could be a middle manager, whatever it may be, but to kind of be that advocate for the team and to say, this is something that we're concerned about, or this is an idea that we have, and be able to communicate and back up the team a little bit. So having some upline communication is also a really important part of being a leader of a team. I like to refer to this as, with confident leadership, about human expertise. It's not always necessary for the leader to know everything. And this is something, in fact, John and I, we were talking about this a couple of days ago when we were preparing for this webinar. We were talking about the concept that in kind of decades past, there was this idea that the team leader or the manager or supervisor had to know everything, had to be the expert in everything. All the procedures, whatever technology they may be using, that they had to be the expert. More current research has revealed that you don't necessarily have to have the expert in whatever the industry is be the leader. In fact, in many cases, the person who is best suited to do particular work may not be best suited to lead the team. And John, I'm trying to remember, when we talked the other morning, did you have an example of something like that? You may not, I can't remember. Did you have an example where something like this had happened?
Yeah, absolutely. So I personally experienced this at former consulting companies that I've worked at. The consultants who were strongest technically would be put into a position of leading people. And sometimes that worked out real well, but sometimes it did not work out real well because just because a person is a technical expert doesn't necessarily mean that they also want to try to lead people. Now, they can be good at sharing that knowledge and bringing other people on the team up, higher in the level of technical competence, but they may not want like an administrative kind of reporting structure that they have to manage and deal with.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. That's a great example, because that's exactly what happens. That sometimes you have someone that's really, really good at that area, but they're not so great with the human relationship. And so when you're looking for confident leadership, it's important to have someone who really will be invested in the human experience and really be able to connect with the team members on a human basis. Because as John pointed out, the leader can always draw on the technical expertise of that team member that may have more knowledge than the leader. There's nothing wrong with that. That's part of understanding the strengths of each team member and being able to draw that out to raise the level of performance for the entire team. So having someone that is really committed to the team members and kind of helping develop them, that's a critical part of confident leadership. So just as a quick review, we've kind of got this triad of high productivity, positive culture, and confident leadership. When all three of those are working in a really high level, that's when you're going to have a high performing team. Those are the three elements. Certainly there's a lot more detail to them, but these are the three things that I always encourage teams to really focus in on to develop a high performing team, to learn how to define each of those, how to measure them, so that they can continue to grow together as a team and become more and more productive. So John, I'm going to kind of turn it back over to you to kind of take it from here on how some technology can help accomplish some of these, sometimes these softer skills, but I'm excited to hear what you're going to share here.
Outstanding, Shawn. Thanks for sharing that. That triad concept is outstanding. Really enjoyed going through that. What I've tried to do is, you had kind of three major areas there with your triad, and I pulled out some pieces of the Microsoft stack that can support some of those things. There's just way too much to go into anything exhaustive on all these areas, but I pulled out a couple of select areas where I feel like there's a lot of value to point out some of the things that you can get from the platform that really support that team model that you're talking about, and pushing teams towards that higher performance. So with that, some of the things we'll definitely look at teams, a little bit of planner. We'll look at this thing called My Analytics. We're gonna look at that first. I don't know if anyone has really paid much attention to that, but really interesting stuff in there. We'll take a peek at some things with Excel and with Power BI related to KPIs and kind of pushing cases forward for the teams that you work within. So we'll dive into some of that now. I'm going to be shifting kind of out of my slideware here over into some areas that we can look at live. The first thing we're going to look at is My Analytics, and this really goes, Shawn, to that area of high productivity. In your experience, Shawn, if you have a team that's exhausted, can they perform at a high degree of success?
Well, not usually. If they're exhausted, they're tired, so they're definitely not going to perform as well as they could have otherwise.
Absolutely. And one of the things that Microsoft brings to us is this thing called My Analytics. Now, My Analytics is one of the apps that you get on the business plans and on the e-licenses that come with the Microsoft platform. And My Analytics is a look into what are your work patterns, where are you spending your time, and who are you spending that time with? And it breaks it down into really 4 areas. One is focus, well-being, networking, and then collaboration. And we're going to dig into each one of these just a little bit and give you a picture of what this is showing about how you're doing your work. So first off, we're going to look at focus. Now, keep in mind too, this is my dashboard, so let's not make too many judgments about my squirrel behavior with being distracted by emails, and you'll see what I'm talking about as we go through here. So this is focus time. So focus time is how much time do you get every day to work on things in an interrupted capacity. There's been a lot of studies and different things done where if you're distracted, you can't just immediately jump back into what you were doing. You need time to focus on things. So looking at my behaviors, I can see that I have about 43% of my work time over the last, and again, all these things we're looking at are over the last 4 weeks. So I can see I have about 43% of my time is available to focus. About 57% is collaboration time, which is, you know, time in meetings, chats, calls, those types of activities. Now, I did mention the piece about being distracted by email. And so what's that mean? So this is what this is telling me is that during normal work hours, most of my email, over half of it gets read within 30 minutes of receiving it. Now, I have turned off my Outlook notification, so I don't get buzzed for emails, but still, it looks like I could probably improve that some. So I get distracted by my email and trying to deal with that from time to time. And then if we look down here, this gives me a week by week comparison on how I've done. So I've been pretty consistent with collaboration time versus focus time. So it's a nice insight to see, you know, how is your day being spent. So that's kind of in our focus area. One of the other pieces that we can do for focus, if you have a hard time focusing, one of the suggestions that you can try out is to actually schedule time for yourself to be focused. And Microsoft has built in a tool here that will actually schedule focus time for you. So we'll put blocks on your calendar for when you can devote it to just focused activities, and people can't, you know, book meetings and things over that time. They'll see that you are busy and trying to focus in on things. So that's focus. And from a well-being perspective, so, you know, this feeds right into that whole story of a healthy worker. So well-being is looking at how am I doing with trying to disconnect and recharge. So this is kind of my 4-week snapshot. And what this is showing me is that I've had 11 days where I kept my quiet hours. Okay, so that means for 11 days, I did not do anything outside of my regular work hours. So my work hours right now are set from 8 to 5 p.m. So this is probably skewed a little bit because I don't have my time scale set correctly, because I'm an early starter. Like, it's not unusual for me to be starting work at 6:30 a.m. and usually wrapping up a little bit earlier. So I probably should adjust that. But what this is telling me is that if I look at my calendar, most of the days, you know, I have 11 days where I'm just not doing things after hours, and then I have 17 days where I've done something after my regular work hours. So this is kind of showing it's meetings, emails, and chats. So this email thing, so apparently the emails is a real problem for me. So it's showing up here also. And to further give you insight into that, this is showing that, you know, within 30 minutes, I typically read those emails within 30 minutes after receiving those after hours.
I share your affliction in that, John, by the way.
Yes, we need to put down those devices, don't we?
It's hard. It's hard not to.
From a network perspective, this is going to show me, you know, who are the people I collaborate with. I'm going to stick kind of up here at the top with my breakpoint folks. This is the total time over the last 4 weeks that I've spent collaborating with these individuals. And it's not surprising. If you're familiar with Breakpoint, these are all the people that I spend a lot of time with. So this shows me 51 active collaborators, 251 total, where I've done either emails or chat or met in the past over the past 12 months. So this kind of can give you a perspective of, you know, how far are you reaching out? It could also show you if the top person on your collaboration list has nothing to do with the kind of work that you do, maybe you need to focus your time more towards people that are engaged with the, you know, the project work and your responsibilities. You know, that's always a possibility. So just another kind of insight we can get from my analytics. Who am I interacting with, and how frequently, how much time am I spending with those people? Collaboration. So if we shift down to this is going to show me some interesting things about how I collaborate. So this first section we're going to look at is around meeting habits. So if I look at this, this is saying out of the 105 meetings I've organized or attended, these are some of the metrics that I have for my meetings. I sent invitations at least a day's notice. So over a little bit less than half of mine have met that criteria. So I should do better about giving people more notice for the meetings that I'm scheduling. High attendance, getting 50% of participation there. So that's pretty good. This one is interesting to me. No emails or chats during the meeting. So 92% of the time I'm paying attention in my meetings is what that's telling me. For me, I'm not a great multitasker in that I have a hard time paying attention to what's in front of me and trying to do something as a secondary activity. I do better focused in on things. And then there's some other metrics here. I'm not going to go into all those, but if you've not looked at your My Analytics, it's an interesting take on how your workday is being spent and where some of your effort is being put. Scrolling down here, communication habits. So I was a little bit surprised on the volume of emails that I'm sending compared to my chats, because I thought I would do more chats and calls than I would for emails sent. Now, and I say that because at Breakpoint, for the most part internally, we don't communicate with emails internally. We send emails usually to external participants, and we do most of our internal discussions will happen on the Teams platform via chat or messages, conversations, and posts in the Teams environment. But as you can see, I am doing more chats and calls than emails, but I am consuming a lot of emails, so I have to read a lot of emails, and some of that. I probably could do some better job with rules inside my inbox to kind of declutter what's coming in and get things pushed off that I don't need to be paying attention to. Would likely help with some of that. So that's our My Analytics piece. And when you look at My Analytics, the worker population across the country has really shifted a lot in that a lot more people are working remotely. And for me personally, it's easy as a remote worker to be overconsumed and spend too much time doing my job. My Analytics can give you a window into that to make sure that you're forming healthy patterns on how you're actually going after your work and doing your work. So that's kind of focuses in there on the focus piece, Shawn, of what you were talking about within high productivity. One of the other pieces I want to touch on around that are around coordination. So I'm going to show you some things now inside of my demonstration environment that I have. And we're going to go over and we're going to look at in our Teams environment. So Teams, of course, this is my Teams environment. And this is the collaboration platform that Microsoft has for group and individual collaboration. And I'm going to go over and I'm going to show you how I can manage some expectations and manage tasks and due dates. One of the tools we have available within Teams is a tool called Planner. And I'm going to shift over to the, the go-to-market channel. So you see here on my left, this is the list of all the teams that I belong to in my demonstration environment. And for each team, I'll have channels that show up underneath that team. A channel is really meant to think of it as a conversation or a category of a topic that's within that team. And I'm going to be looking at my go-to-market plan. So the Market project team is responsible for bringing some products to the market for the Contoso organization. So Contoso is Microsoft's favorite fictional company, and I'm going to look at my event plan. So I've been trying to build out a plan to actually execute on an event. So you could use this for any number of things, but these are the way we've grouped this work within Planner. Now, many of my tasks are all red. I can see immediately they're overdue, and that's because this is a demonstration tenant that I spun up last year. So as an example, for my media on-site press kit, I can see that Grady is specifically assigned to this work, but really his due date, it's not really October 13th. We're going to move that to be a more realistic date, to be maybe February 12th. And it's in progress. This is an important activity, so we're going to leave it flagged as important. But what's important to note about this is that when I assign work to one of the individuals that are involved with this event that I'm trying to manage through Planner, Grady is notified that he's been assigned work. He can come to this task. He can look and see what are the details of the task that I need to execute on, and when is the expectation for when this work should be completed. You'll notice each one of these cards represents an individual task. I can have one or more people assigned to one of these tasks. So maybe Grady has some other assistants with who's helping. Maybe Alex is going to assist with this task. So it's real easy to add additional people onto the task, and then I can even do attachments. So this is a PowerPoint presentation that's linked to this task so that Grady and Alex can real easily jump to that document and do the work they need to do on it. This is a planner board. It's laid out in a card layout. Each card represents a task. Across the top are the major kind of buckets, the major categories of the tasks that we have laid out. We call those buckets. These buckets are completely customizable based on the kind of project that you're doing. So this can be whatever you need it to be from a customization perspective. I can label these buckets that better meet the needs of the project that I'm trying to track and the activities that I'm trying to track. As I'm working on these things, Alex will have his perspective of the specific tasks that they have to work on. This is my board view. I can also flip this over to look at it from a couple of different perspectives. So I can look at the different charts that I have here. I'm going to flip over here to my priority list of charts. So this is showing me which tasks are most important, which ones are grouped by the individual buckets. It shows me the progress of each one. So it's really a great lightweight task management tool that we can use to clearly articulate when things are assigned to people and when those things need to be completed by those individuals, and lets me have a real easy snapshot in the progress towards those goals. Okay, so that's Planner. And again, that's really geared towards collaboration, or I'm sorry, towards the coordination piece of high productivity that you were talking about, Shawn, making sure people understand the things that they need to be focusing on and making sure that they understand when those things need to be completed. So really kind of touches, I think, on several areas of the triad that you were bringing forward for us to think about with our teams.
Yeah, this is a great tool. I'm really impressed because you've got some delegation pieces in there. You've got some accountability. You've got obviously the coordination, collaboration. This is great. Very impressive.
Yep. And then again, I can flip this around to look in different ways too. I can do it by assigned to and different categories here based on how we've set that up. So that's our planner piece. And then just overall general collaboration, just I'd be remiss to not show this, but I talked earlier about how we don't do a lot of things on email internally at Breakpoint, and I'm going to show you a couple of the reasons why we've shifted to using more of Teams. So I'm going to go into the usability testing. So I'm trying to find something on usability testing that we've been working on, and I'm going to do a search here to see if I can find that. So usability testing. So here is a document that Johanna's been working on that I need to get in here and take a peek at. So here's my usability testing thread. So this is within my design team for Mark 8. And this is the conversation thread that has been going on with usability testing. So I can see that Johanna posted a document out here, and I can take a look at this document here, and I will here in just a moment. But then I have a thread of conversations that have been going on around this document to move it forward. So in times past, this conversation would be embedded in emails, and so you're really at the mercy of Outlook and being able to manage that on the conversation level in Outlook. And for me, like, Outlook is great for pushing things into the conversation, but it's really hard to get the sense because there's so much duplication, there's so much repeating, it's hard to keep all that organized. This keeps this discussion focused around this document in one spot for me to recap and see what's been going on with it. So you can see this is collapsed here. It's going to try to, I can expand this out to see what else is in that post. It's really a full grouping of all the activity that's been around that document. So if I need to actually do something on this document now, click right on it. It's stored out into our Teams and SharePoint environment, so it's available to everyone on the team. As I'm looking in the document, one of the things I can do is click on the conversation, and this is that same conversation. So this is all about this document and the exchange of ideas and information that we've been working on to try to get it to a point where it is at the end state we need for our customers, for the consumers of this document. So I'm going to give some feedback on this. One of the things we can also do, so on these conversations, we can tag individuals in here so that they get a special alert, a special notification to let them know that I've made some comments, and this looks really good. Great work. This is Megan who was working on this. We'll give it to Megan. So great work, Megan. So it's just an easy way to work on a specific kind of office type document. I can see the exchange of information. It's all stored in one place for me. Real nice in terms of setting up a collaboration environment to share ideas and move things forward. So share that out. And that'll get posted back out to my Teams environment. And again, all this is self-contained within the Teams environment. You'll see down here, there's my last comment that just flows in, and whoever comes back into this team to look at this document can see where we left off within this conversation. One of the pieces I wanted to mention on, I'm going to jump back to a slide for just a moment. So that's kind of our collaboration piece around high productivity, and I guess maybe even being a positive force for collaboration. This environment lends itself well to giving kudos and saying great job, great work. So it's an easy way to communicate positive sentiments to those workers that you're working with. For engagement, so employee engagement, I want to touch on just a couple things related to that. I'm going to jump back to my slides for just a moment because I can't jump over to a good Teams meeting while I'm doing my live event here. And I'm going to do from the current slide. So inside my Teams environment, employee engagement and trying to get people to engage on activities or conversations and participate and bring them in, draw them into the discussion, get their ideas flowing. On the Teams platform, we have kind of multiple options there. We have, of course, the voice. You're hearing my voice over the Teams live event. You're seeing our slides here. But when we're doing regular Teams meetings, we also have the visual face-to-face. So you can see that's what we're depicting here. I can see the individuals that are participating. Some organizations will use the cameras, some don't. It's just a kind of mix of that culture piece that drives, what's being used there, but it's available. When I'm trying to engage people on a meeting, some people may not want to speak up while they're on camera. Maybe they don't want to be put on the spot, or for whatever reason, whatever that reason is that they don't want to share their comments or their information live. They can drop information into the chat window. So we have our chat for the meeting, and it has a historical record of those comments. So if they want to put comments real time into the meeting and not speak, maybe they've got things going on in the background, pets and kids, that they can't come off mute. It gives them a real easy way to put comments into the meeting space through the Teams environment. And even further building on that concept, if you have people on your team who are reluctant to share ideas for whatever reason, they will have a chance even after the meeting. So if your Teams meeting are set up inside of a channel within Teams, your participants can also make comments on that meeting after the meeting is ended. So we still have this historical ongoing record where we can collect and solicit things from individuals and give them multiple paths to engagement. It was real easy for us on the Teams platform. One of the other areas around engagement I wanted to touch on. So Teams is a collaboration tool, but I would really call it a collaboration platform. You're going to see a variety of applications that can be built and live within the Teams environment. One of the things that have come out recently that Microsoft's put out to augment the functionality we have in Teams is this idea of an employee ideas app, and we're going to take a quick peek at that. So this is a tool. If I go over to my Contoso team, is where we've got this deployed at. I'm going to Contoso team. I'm just going to go into my general channel. So I have an employee ideas tab up here. This is a tool that lets me engage the people on this Contoso team to collect ideas and feedback from them related to different topics. So we have several campaigns. They're called campaigns. So the things we're trying to get feedback on are created as campaigns. And within here, I can look like in company masks. So we were getting a campaign around company masks, and this fits into the COVID and the pandemic area. But the question that we're getting feedback on is, should we be supplying company masks? And one of the comments was we should provide high quality company masks. This is an idea, to support that. So this is an easy way for individuals within your organization to provide real easy feedback within the Teams platform on specific areas, specific topics that we're trying to gather information on, and it will, assemble this feedback, assemble this information for me. Adding a campaign. So if I wanted to put some new feedback that I wanted to try to gather from my employees, some new ideas from employees, real easy to set up a new campaign. So maybe we're having a company retreat. Where should the retreat be? Can't type very well here. Retreat this year. I can put a time span on here, so this is how long that's going to be available for people to do feedback on. What location should we use for the retreat? And I'm going to leave this question wide open. I can make this text. And then this is going to give everyone a chance to put in a location for where they want to actually have the company retreat this year. I can add this campaign. I can put an image up here. It's going to want a cover image. These are stock images. I will go with our little bulldog. And we'll add that campaign. So easy as that, I can start to collect information from this group of individuals about how, where they would like to have our company retreat be held this year. And here you can see is my company retreat here. I can submit an idea, and let's see, tropical, right? Get out of all this cold sleet and rain here. I'm in the Indiana area, so we're getting a lot of cold weather. Hawaii, I can't spell Hawaii probably. Maybe that's it, Hawaii. Submit that idea. So we'll see if that takes, might be expensive. But this is just an easy tool, an easy way to collect information from a group of people around an idea that we're trying to generate things on. One other piece, we got about 5 or 6 minutes left here. I want to show one other piece, and this kind of goes over to the leadership piece. Shawn is where I want to go over to. One of the things you mentioned was that promoting upwards, or upwards advocation for your team. So as a leader, many times it's helpful. You're the face for that team. So right. We need a way to really show how is my team doing. And many times how a team is doing is driven by different pieces of data, different sets of data that we can work with. And I'm going to go back to my Mark8 project team. And I'm going to go to the go-to-market. And the first tool that we're going to look at really is something pretty simple. This is a real simple set of insights into performance. So this is using Excel within Teams, and I'm going to expand this a little bit so I can blow up full screen here. And I have some focus group data. So my team has been working on collecting some information from some different focus groups, and I really want to show the rest of the organization, what are those findings? Why is this work that my team is doing so important? And so here's kind of my data set. And on the left here, I can filter this just on just the pure data set if I wanted to. And that can be useful. One of the things I really like to use are visualizations when I'm trying to tell that kind of a story. And the first thing I'm going to look at is we're looking at a couple different pieces of information. Let me get this to refresh. There we go. So we're looking at outcomes when people were opening a package. So were they excited? Based on the package type, what number of people scored the experience of opening that package? Were they angry? Some people were angry. Isn't that funny? But it's an interesting insight. To the right, we have our kind of age slices and our gender demographic. And then we have this one down in the bottom was real interesting to me, this shelf impact, and we're going to focus in on this one. But this is from when a product's on the shelf, what influences that person to kind of look and be interested in that product? And I'm going to start off, I'm going to look at my age group of 18 to 25. So the most important thing for engaging them was the color. So right, the shelf impact, the color, and the shape, those are the big ones for that age group. Okay. If I take those filters off, and if I look at my older community, so over 65, and I click on that, they are more focused in on the textual components here. Wait for that to refresh. Yeah, here we go. So for over 65, the impact is words, right? So the older audience that was reviewing these products and looking at that were more impacted by the text than they were by the design and the shape as the younger audience was. So, being able to glean these kind of insights from just a really simple list of data, as you've seen here, you have a great tool set that you can use within the platform to look at your data and tell the story that needs to be told about the story, whether you are trying to assist with selling products, or if you're trying to advocate for the work and the kinds of things that your team is excelling at and moving forward the company on.
That's really impressive.
Yep, thanks, Shawn. Thanks, Shawn. We got about 5 minutes left. I'm gonna shift back here to our slides, and I'm gonna actually check. Judy, I know you're on there with us. Were there any questions that we had come in that we could touch on? I'm kind of caught Judy off guard there. She may not be ready. Okay.
No, we have not had any questions come in that we haven't been able to answer, other than people wanted to make sure that they could get a copy of the recording, which we will send out to all attendees.
Yes, very good. Very good. Let me shift back over to our slides, and we'll wrap this up for your webinar today. So definitely the webinar will be sent out recording. If you registered for it, you'll get that through your calendar invite, and we'll send that up with a follow-up email also to make sure you have access to that. Number one, thanks for spending time with us today. We really appreciate it. Shawn, thanks for helping us out on this. It was great to learn more about the Triad. Super excited about that.
That was great. Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're very welcome. And what Breakpoint and Blue Sky would like to do is we're offering you a complimentary 1-hour teamwork assessment. If you're interested in that, please reach out to me. My contact information is here, john.gootee@breakpoint.technology. You can respond back to those emails that we'll send out with the recordings if that's something that you're interested in. But look forward to hearing from you. Thanks so much for spending your afternoon with us, and we will see you soon. Thanks.